When he was left at an orphanage, he was rescued there by this scary old man. Since then his training arc started. At day 711 of training, he defeated the massive giant pig. At day 1000, his one punch was strong enough to break the tree, but the master was still not impressed. Then, at age 10 he could easily beat the powerful mantis. And finally when he turned 13, it was time for him to face the old man himself. As soon as the battle starts, he is shocked by the speed of the attack, which concludes the intro. Watch till the end to find out, and let's begin.
One peaceful, ordinary day, people suddenly turned to the sky, noticing a strange phenomenon. It was the outbreak. A massive hole opened up in the sky, and through it, monsters spilled out across the earth, causing chaos everywhere. Cities soon turned to rubble, and people hid to try and survive. Mankind was in despair. However, a beacon of hope shone upon those who had lost faith, signaling that it wasn't the end for humanity. Some people were granted special abilities and named hunters, becoming the saviors of humanity. The blessing bestowed upon hunters that made them special were traits. Someone is currently explaining all this to someone else. The lecturer, visibly angry, claims that there's no hunter worth anything. He asserts to a small boy that today's hunters are hopeless, relying solely on their traits and dying off. The little boy's name is Shin Yu-sung, and he is 5 years old. The old man tutoring him asks what a hunter needs to survive, and Shin raises his hand to answer, a strength. The man agrees that a hunter relies solely on their strength and should be able to defeat enemies with a single punch. He reveals that it's the reason why he brought Shin from the orphanage. He says Shin is born with the perfect body. The man explains about the 9 yin pathways being blocked. He says that Shin's 9 blocked yin pathways grant him an exceptional mind, godlike looks, and abundant mana. Shin looks terrified and asks if he will die when the man says he will likely croak much earlier. The man laughs heartily, muttering that Shin is impatient as he resurrects his puppet. Shin's eyes sparkle with curiosity as the man explains that his abundance of bodily yang energy cures the negative effects of the 9 blocked yin pathways. The man then pats Shin's shoulder and claims his rare physique will never appear again in human history. With a grin, he says only he can help Shin utilize his strength properly and asks if he will follow him. Shin agrees to be trained by the man as the man lifts him up, laughing. And so, day 1 of training starts. Now it's already day 711. And Shin has just managed to kill a massive wild boar-like monster. He is already 7 and covered in the blood of the monster. His master arrives with first aid and mocks Shin for defeating the weak monster, claiming his rival once defeated a rank 2 monster at 7. Then he tells Shin to devote himself more to training, which Shin agrees to. It's day 1040 of training, and Shin has just felled a thick tree and is yelling that he did it. Currently 8 years old, Shin turns excitedly to his master and seeks his approval of his achievement. However, the master, instead of praising Shin, exclaims that it's dull. It's now day 1785 of training, and Shin is facing massive mantis monsters. He pulls back a punch and with massive force directs it at the monsters. And this way with a single attack, the 10-year-old Shin defeats the monsters. Like always, the master tells him that his stance is still lacking and notes that with such a level of skill, Shin can never be a hunter. Shin agrees he has a long way to go as the master says they will sleep there and orders him to light a fire. It's day 2892 of training, and Shin, now 13, is about to have a friendly spar with his master. Before Shin can even move a step, the master charges at him with his punch raised. Shin reacts quickly and moves his fist in front of his face to defend. The master gives a booming laugh as his punch sends Shin crashing backward into a wall. Shin counterattacks as he sprints towards the master, who launches a punch at him. Shin swiftly dodges the punch and moves behind the master with a punch ready. With a determined look, he slams the punch at the master's stomach. But he is shocked as he sees that the master has stopped his powerful punch with a single finger. Laughing, the master tells Shin he has gotten pretty nimble. He raises his hand and grabs his head. He then pats Shin and, complimenting him, tells him that his posture has improved a lot. However, he also bellows at him that he cannot be conceited and reminds him that there are plenty of very powerful hunters. Shin, intimidated by his master's words, wonders if he will have to fight monsters like his master in the future. Despite all this pressure, he clenches his fist and declares that he will definitely be the greatest hunter. He gulps and states that he will work hard. The master tells Shin he has to train harder to become the strongest hunter and informs him they will have meat tonight. It's day 4421 of training, and Shin is meditating at the bottom of a massive waterfall. The master comes trotting towards him and says that he can't believe it's their last day of training together. Shin, who is now 17, steps out of the waterfall. He then gets dressed. The master notices that Shin is almost ready to depart. He flings something at Shin, which he catches. Shin sees that it's a bracelet, which suddenly begins glowing blue. From the bracelet, a hologram of his ID card emerges. Shin notices that it's a card of JN Academy. The master explains that he has already sent a letter of recommendation to the academy. Shin joins his hands and in appreciation thanks the master for all his help till now. With this, Shin walks off to his next great adventure. In the world, there are countless other hunters whom Shin will encounter soon enough. In his next journey, Shin will experience many things unknown to him. But despite all these hardships, the master is certain that Shin will become the strongest of them all. After all, Shin was trained by the strongest hunter in the world himself. After the monster outbreak, humanity chose education as its method to counter. Various facilities were built to create strong, active hunters by providing the best education, called Hunter Academy. Academies train hunters with various weapons and provide information on monster characteristics. The academies also focus on strategies to raid dungeons and understanding traits. For 3 years, the students attend the academy to learn all the necessary information to become hunters. Among all the academies, the one recognized as the best is the Jaeon Academy, where Shin will be attending. Once Shin reaches the academy, he is welcomed by the headmaster, Jin Byong. The headmaster looks overjoyed seeing Shin and begins shaking his hands enthusiastically. He takes Shin to his office, offers him black tea, and asks how eager he is to enroll in Jaeon. The headmaster knows that Shin is the disciple of Yu Wonhak, and he seems overjoyed. He is also confident that Shin must have an incredible ability. Unable to contain his curiosity, the headmaster asks Shin if his trait is S rank. Shin claims his trait is F rank, which leaves the headmaster aghast. The headmaster laughs, thinking Shin is joking, as no disciple of the strongest hunter can have an F rank trait. Still hopeful, the headmaster questions Shin if his trait is A rank, but Shin denies that and confirms it's F rank. The headmaster checks Shin's trait, sees it's F rank, and bellows in shock, saying he doesn't believe it. Shin smiles and says his master advised not to rely on his trait, while the headmaster, shaken, clutches his head. The headmaster gets on his feet and turns around in despair. Rage fills him as he realizes why that old man was being helpful to him. The headmaster claims he doesn't want to raise the number of F ranks in the academy further. But since he has promised the old man, he can't push Shin out of the academy. So he decides to give Shin a chance and reminds him that in Jaeon, skill is everything. With this, the headmaster tells Shin to prove his skills if he wishes to enroll in Jaeon even if he is an F rank. A mission has been passed around the academy where the students can try and defeat Shin and get 50 SP, school points, as a reward. A while later, 2 students who have learned about this mission are discussing it. A red-haired student expresses surprise that the Fist King's disciple is F rank and asks if defeating him earns 50 SP, which the guy confirms. The red-haired student is Ju Hajin, with a student ranking of 42. Hajin puts his arm around the guy's shoulder, points out that something is off, and suspects Shin might be a scammer. With a grin, Hajin asks if that's correct, to which the scared guy agrees. Hajin then gets up and instructs the guy to tell others in the class that he will be taking care of Shin. Hajin also mentions that if anyone opposes him, they can try fighting with him. He then leaves the room with a smile on his face. The guy mutters that it's over. Hajin, excited and confident that beating an F rank will be easy, wonders if the Fist King might take him as a disciple instead of Shin. Thinking about this, Hajin claims he is getting pumped up. Suddenly, he stumbles onto someone on the way and turning in anger, shouts at that person to watch where they are going. But he gets silent as he realizes who that person is. It's Adela Hortensia, with a student ranking of first. Hajin quickly runs away in fear. Meanwhile, Adela, hearing Fist King, remembers it very well. When she was young, her grandfather had told her about his ally, who was the strongest hunter. Her grandfather had said that his ally defeated a genius in a single breath and told Adela to remember the name Fist King, Yu Wonhak. Adela recalls she heard Shin is a disciple of Fist King, and she wonders if that's true, Shin should be able to get to a certain place. Shin, wearing his new school uniform, looks sharp and smart. A student asks Shin if the size fits, and Shin thanks that student and says the size is perfect. Lee Saiwoo, rank 72, claims he is good at such things. Shin flexes his arm, noting the dress is very comfortable to move in, while Saiwoo claims functionality is a priority for hunters. Saiwoo presses the watch on Shin's arm, summoning a barrier around him, and explains it can be used in danger. Saiwoo looks uncertain that Shin's first sparring partner is Hajin and thinks it's unfair for an enrollment test. At that moment, someone peeks through the door informing Shin it's time. Saiwoo wishes Shin luck for the test, telling him to win. Shin has a confident look on his face as he says he will definitely pass. The stage is set with Shin and Hajin standing face to face for their spar. Sitting beside the headmaster, Yuhana is the commentator for the match. She declares it is time to present the participants. First, she introduces Shin, followed by Hajin. Hana mentions that Hajin must be overwhelmed to be in this match and wonders what made him want to participate. Hajin responds to this, admitting he is feeling a bit nervous. He also claims that he entered the match to find out if Shin is really suited to enter Jaeon or if he is just a fraud. Hana and the headmaster look very pleased with this response from Hajin. With a smile, Hajin promises to uphold Jaeon Academy's name. A girl in the crowd points out that Hajin is competing only for the SP and asks if anyone wants to bet on the winner. Back in the ring, Hajin raises his fist and shouts out that he will show everyone. The commentator Hana, declares the end of Hajin's interview and asks Shin if he can share a few words about how he is feeling. Shin closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. He speaks just a sentence, saying he will do his best. Grinning, Hajin says Shin is useless. The countdown for the match starts as Hajin calls Shin trash and says he will end the fight quickly. Hajin is ready to use his trait to defeat Shin as Hana gives permission to start the match. Before Hajin can think or react, Shin charges at him, startling him. Hajin's mouth is wide open in shock as Shin raises his leg and kicks Hajin in the face. The spectators are all bewildered seeing this. Hana explains that Shin's single kick broke through Hajin's barrier and managed to knock him out. With this, Shin is announced the winner. A girl in the audience is surprised that Shin really won. Groaning with pain, Hajin opens his eyes. He is lying on a bed and asks where he is. The doctor tells him he is in the infirmary, and she hands Hajin a drink and tells him to drink it and rest. Taking a sip, Hajin recalls the fight and claims he didn't even see Shin coming at him. Moreover, he is unable to believe that Shin is really an F-rank student. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, the principal, looking pissed, has summoned Shin, but he forces a smile and congratulates Shin for officially being a student at JN. He also claims he knew Shin would pass, as Shin thanks him. The principal thinks he worried for nothing as despite being F-ranked, Shin is still the disciple of the Fist King. He decides it's too early to judge Shin. He then tells Shin the entrance exam is just a start. He explains that if Shin wants to follow his master's footsteps, he has to aim for something, which is becoming one of the 7 rankers who represent JN Academy. Shin considers this information as he knows that no F-rank student has joined the 7s. He asks if he can really make it to the 7s, and the principal confirms that he can. The principal says there's always a path to join the 7. At that moment, someone outside the door asks permission to enter. The principal seems to have been expecting that person and allows them to enter. The principal claims that since it's Shin's first time in the academy, he has called for someone to guide him. It's Lee Saiwoo, who waves happily at Shin. The students in the corridor all stare after Shin as he and Lee Saiwoo walk along. Shin thanks Saiwoo for agreeing to guide him. Saiwoo realizes he hasn't introduced himself to Shin and extends his arm, saying, his name is Lee Saiwoo. He also suggests Shin to call him just Saiwoo. Shin gives an appreciative smile as he shakes Saiwoo's hand, saying it's nice to meet him. Saiwoo claims he watched Shin's match and says it was incredible. He gives a satisfied look as he mentions it was an instant KO. While Saiwoo and Shin are busy in their conversation, someone arrives, seeing whom the other students hurry out of the way, all looking scared. The new arrival is a girl, who tells Saiwoo and Shin to get aside. The girl is wearing a black coat and has red eyes, and it's certain from her appearance that she is a bully. Saiwoo apologizes to the girl and moves out of the way quickly, but Shin doesn't budge, and Saiwoo turns to him and sees his reaction is blank. The girl gazes at Shin intently while the student standing beside her, Lee Hyuk, rank 2, warns Shin to move aside. But the girl claims that she and Shin know each other and exclaims she didn't expect to meet Shin there. Shin continues staring at the girl who leans towards him and mutters in his ear that Shin is their family's faulty produce. Saying this, she walks past Shin who continues standing there like a statue. Saiwoo's mouth is wide open in shock as he finds out Shin is a part of the Shurno family. Meanwhile, Shin has gone into a kind of trance where he remembers his sister terrorizing him, calling him a failure. This causes Shin to get lost deeper into despair when suddenly someone shouts his name, snapping him back to reality. Saiwoo asks Shin if he is alright and, noticing his pale face, suggests Shin go and take rest in the dorm. Saiwoo also points out that it's raining outside, so it will be best to go to their dorms. With a gloomy look on his face, Shin agrees to Saiwoo's request. A while later, Saiwoo takes Shin to his dorm and opens the door. Seeing the small dorm, Saiwoo claims it's standard for new students and says he's sure Shin will quickly move up to better dorms. But Shin, who used to sleep on tree branches, exclaims his dorm is really good. Saiwoo hands over the key to Shin and tells him to feel free to ask if he has any questions. Shin thanks Saiwoo for his help that day. With this, Saiwoo leaves, waving goodbye to Shin. Shin takes off his clothes and takes a warm bath. He then wipes himself dry and from the freezer takes a banana juice. Feeling exhausted, Shin lies down on the bed to rest. As the rain hammers against the window, Shin gets reminded of a certain day when the weather was similar to now. When Shin was really young, his parents had taken him out on a car ride, and it was raining heavily. His parents had told him to understand their decision, and he had agreed. After some time, the car had stopped in front of an unknown place. Shin's parents had then taken him out of the car and handed him to another person. Doing this, his parents had got into the car and left, abandoning Shin to an orphanage. This memory was really a painful one for Shin. But despite this, he did not cry because he believed he was at fault. Shin had believed he couldn't fulfill his parents' expectations, and he thought he couldn't be like his older sister, so he got thrown away. Shin doesn't think of it as sad, as from the very beginning he was very weak. He always considered himself a failure as he was very different from his older sister. However, One day everything changed when the Fist King arrived at the orphanage. The Fist King somehow recognized Shin's true potential and asked him to go with him. But Shin, who had given up, said he didn't want to go anywhere as he was tired. To be fair, Shin was afraid he would disappoint himself if he grew expectations of himself. Moreover, he was afraid to disappoint others if they had expectations of him. The Fist King had considered all Shin said and told him he was wrong. The Fist King said that the strongest person is not someone who doesn't despair nor someone who doesn't fail. He had revealed he once was just like Shin. The Fist King had explained that the strongest fail more than anyone else, they despair more than anyone else, and offered to teach Shin. The Fist King had also mentioned that even if Shin cries and despairs, he would teach Shin to get back up. Saying this, the Fist King had extended his arm and told Shin he could become the strongest hunter. The Fist King had guaranteed this as being the strongest hunter himself. Shin had finally agreed and taken the Fist King's hand. Now in the present, Shin is a different person. Rather than pain, he has more happy memories, and he plans to use happy memories to overwrite the painful memories. Shin is confident he can overcome that painful experience. The rain continues pouring outside as Shin receives a message. He opens the message and sees it's from Saiwu. Shin gives a smile and replies to Saiwu that everything is under control now. Laying back on his bed, Shin notes that the important thing isn't the past but the present. It's morning, and the sun is shining brightly. Inside a dorm, the alarm clock rings loudly. Someone groans in sleep and extends their arm to turn off the alarm. It's a girl with long pink hair. She wakes up, yawns, and stretches her arm. She then makes toast and fries some bacon and eggs for breakfast. After that, she puts on her uniform and stands in front of the mirror. Seeing she looks good, she smiles. With that, she walks out of her dorm and heads to the academy. This girl transferred to Jaein Academy a month ago but still gets awestruck every time she walks to school. She finds Jaein Academy's building structure, its facilities, and all the rooms much better than all the other academies she knows. But she is aware that not all the facilities in the academy are open to everyone. Many are only given to the highest-ranking students, the sevens. Her name is Hanajima Sumire, and she is ranked 659th in the year. She longs to join the sevens. After a while, she arrives at the school. Looking up at the grand building, she acknowledges that her goals are still far beyond her reach. One of her classes is in the image room, and it's her first time being there. The teacher asks for everyone's attention. He introduces himself as Lin Xiao, and says it's nice to meet the students. One of the students notes that teacher Myung was supposed to teach the class. Xiao says Myung was scouted by China and left, assuring the students not to worry. He claims that he used to be a rank 5 hunter, which is why he got permission to teach in the image room. As Xiao continues speaking, Yusung and Saiwu come running, apologizing for being late. Saiwu, panting, says he was giving Yusung a tour and got distracted. Sumire looks surprised to see Yusung there as she had seen him in the fight the other day. Xiao recognizes Yusung and asks if he's the disciple of the Fist King, which Yusung affirms. Like others, Xiao also expresses surprise that a legendary hunter like the Fist King has an F-rank disciple like Yusung. But he senses a strange aura emitting from Yusung's body and, patting him on the shoulder, points out he's been training hard. Smiling, Yusung claims he's never missed a day of training yet. Xiao smiles back and praises Yusung for his attitude. The students are surprised to see an F-class student like Yusung being recognized by Xiao, a rank 5 hunter. Xiao then says he wants to check out Yusung's skills. He points out that the image room is the best place to verify one's strength. Xiao says he has confirmed the settings and explains Yusung can touch the hologram and choose a difficulty. Yusung says he understands and chooses hard mode and danger rank 3. Seeing this, the entire class, as well as the teacher, are shocked as the system begins applying the changes made by Yusung. Yusung then declares that he will be starting. Xiao, still looking uncertain, gives Yusung permission to enter. Xiao starts wondering if Yusung can really handle rank 3 difficulty and hard mode and finds it hard to tell if Yusung is bluffing. Once Yusung steps forward, the system begins generating the virtual environment. Once the image materialization completes, the image room now resembles a desert. Suddenly creatures with huge feet and sharp weapons arrive there. They are orcs, massive in size and strong-looking. The orc at the front asks Yusung how he dares invade their territory. The orc bellows at the others to kill Yusung and they begin charging forward. Yusung, who has his eyes closed, opens them, using the skill Heightened Focus. Yusung activates Heightened Focus and instantly senses a presence behind the large rock a few feet away. He realizes that those hidden behind the rock are 2 archers. Yusung believes that the orcs who are charging at him will tire him, so that those archers can finish him off easily. Yusung sees the orc's weapon closing in on his face, quickly decides on a course of action, and grabs the weapon. He then uses the weapon he grabbed to block the attacks from the other 2 orcs. Quickly, He snaps the weapon in two before raising his hand and grabbing onto the red orc's face. Yusung slams the orc onto the ground with force while the two others raise their weapons to strike him from behind. He reacts fast and uses his right hand to launch quick consecutive punches at the two orcs lunging at him. Just like that, the three warrior orcs are defeated. At that moment, those two archers shoot arrows straight at Yusung. The arrow is inches from Yusung's eyes when he suddenly disappears. The archers are startled, seeing Yusung vanish just like that. But they are unaware that Yusung has appeared right behind them as he grabs onto them and finishes them off. With this, Yusung successfully clears the training. He then walks forward, with a smile on his face. Saiwoo and Sumire are both open-mouthed in shock as it's revealed Yusung has set a new record. Even the teacher, Xiao, is astounded, seeing Yusung's fast movements. Xiao finally understands it's not a fluke and is confident Yusung can definitely aim for the sevens. After the class is over, Saiwoo, with his eyes sparkling, praises Yusung, saying he is amazing. He points out that Yusung set a new record in the very first class. Saiwoo also claims that with Yusung's skills, it's definitely possible, prompting Yusung to ask what is possible. Saiwoo mentions that the academy has rankings. He explains about the 7 students at the peak, who are called the Sevens. Saiwoo points out that a student from the lower classes has never gotten into the Sevens. Saying this, Saiwoo takes a sip of his soda while Yusung stares in silence. Meanwhile, Adela, who is checking the screen, sees something and is startled. It's the notice that says Yusung has created a new record by beating her previous one. She recognizes the name Shin Yusung. She also feels her heart starting to beat fast. She then remembers that Yusung's master was the only hunter to defeat her grandpa. But before she can overthink it, an alert on her watch informs her of a new message. The message is about the first semester exam of the academy. Back in his dorm, Saiwoo, who has seen the notice too, is chatting with Yusung about it. As Yusung scans his fingerprint, Saiwoo claims that in the exam, one needs to get lucky and receive a good partner. Saying so, Saiwoo asks Yusung who he partnered up with. Yusung mutters the name Hanajima Sumire. Meanwhile, Sumire, who has also seen that Yusung is her partner, shrieks out loud in shock. It's lunchtime and the students are in the cafeteria, all enjoying their lunch. A student claims that in the exam, surviving longer is more important than scoring high. 2 other girls are also busy discussing their exam partners. A rank 57 and a rank 52 student seem to be in a beef, each giving the other threatening looks. Yusung looks around and seeing all this, points out that everyone is busy talking about the exam. Saiwoo, who is sitting with Yusung, claims that the exams determine which class you end up in, as being in a higher rank means certain benefits. At that moment, a girl walks in saying it's all terrible. With a grin, she introduces herself as Rinia, and tells Yusung it's nice to see him. Yusung politely smiles and greets Rinia. Rinia, with an excited look, says she has something to tell Yusung. She then requests Yusung to marry her. Hearing this, Yusung is puzzled. Saiwoo tells Rinia that Yusung doesn't understand jokes, while Rinia claims she isn't joking. She also makes it clear that she is there to see Yusung, not Saiwoo. Saiwoo asks Rinia if she is curious about who Yusung's partner is, which she affirms. Saiwoo then warns Rinia not to get too surprised once she finds out. As Yusung reveals his partner's name, Hanajima Sumire, Rinia instantly gives a bewildered look. Yusung, who seems confused, asks why everyone seems so surprised to learn who his partner is. Saiwoo tries to explain the reason but stammers and becomes silent. Meanwhile, Rinia, thinking hard, says that it's not like everyone in the class shunned Sumire. She explains that Sumire is thought to be a shy girl by everyone as she rarely speaks and raises her head. When Sumire first arrived, her speaking tone made Rinia and others think they should help Sumire get used to the class. But on the very first day Sumire transferred to Jain Academy, a weird rumor started to spread. One day, late at night when all students had left, one male student went back to his class to take something he had forgotten. Doing so, that student saw Sumire letting off ominous energies and scribbling something into her notebook, all alone. The next day, someone saw Sumire drop her handkerchief. That student tried to return the handkerchief, but Sumire disappeared. While holding the handkerchief, the student felt odd and found it filled with hairs upon examination. Along with these, there are a lot more rumors. For instance, Sumire transferred from Japan after she hospitalized her entire class there. After narrating all this, Rinia claims that she doesn't believe in these rumors and asks Yusung if he knows why. Trying to look interested, Yusung asks why. Rinia whispers that unlike what all the scary rumors suggest, Sumire is super weak, so weak she is afraid of almost everything. Rinia says she never thought Sumire would be so weak, while Saiwoo mentions that he heard Sumire was the ace of class in Japan. Yu-sung looks interested in learning more about Sumire and wants to hear more directly from her. At that moment, someone comes and apologizes to Yu-sung. Both Rinia and Saiwoo are puzzled by this. It's Sumire, who is apologizing to Yu-sung for being his partner. Sumire repeats her apology and begins tearing up. Rinia and Saiwoo are embarrassed, realizing Sumire heard their whole conversation. Sumire says Yu-sung should be super disappointed for getting someone weak like her for a partner. Rinia and Saiwoo both stand up and make excuses to get away from there. Now, only Yu-sung and Sumire are the ones remaining. After some silence, Yu-sung suggests they take a walk, which Sumire agrees to. They go outside in the gardens where Yu-sung goes to buy drinks for them while Sumire sits on the bench. Yu-sung hands over the drink to Sumire, who thanks him. Sumire takes a long swig of the juice and admits that she is weak but also firmly denies that all the rumors about her are wrong. She claims that she stayed behind in class because she was busy writing her ledger. She also explains that the hair she was carrying around is because of her trait. Looking puzzled, Yu-sung asks her about her trait. Sumire says that her trait is Controller of the Undead, a specialized black magic trait that focuses on the undead. Saying so, she stands up and claims that she can only use one skill, and to use that skill, she needs to make an offering of hair. Sumire then pulls out a strand of her hair and holding it up, begins chanting a statement. The hair strand begins to glow, which Sumire drops to the ground. Once the hair touches the ground, dark and muddy-like substance begins forming there. Little by little, the fluid increases while Yu-sung watches in silence, with a disgusted kind of look on his face. After a moment, an undead appears in front of them, its eyes glowing. Sumire demonstrates her trait, and summons a nervous-looking skeleton. She also claims that there's a big problem with this skill. And to demonstrate, she commands the skeleton to attack the tree in front of it. The skeleton obeys Sumire's command and creates a fist. It then launches a powerful punch right at the tree's trunk. However, in doing so, the skeleton's bones all crumble and its body gets disassociated as Sumire shrieks that it's as she thought. Meanwhile, Yu-sung begins analyzing this skill of her and thinks deeply about it. Within seconds, he cracks what the problem. Yu-sung, in a kinder tone, points out that Sumire has no friends. Hearing this, Sumire turns red as she begins to stammer but doesn't deny Yu-sung's assumption. With a gloomy face, Sumire says that she is a weak student with a weird need to collect hair. Yu-sung assumes that Sumire must have tried to collect other students' hair in Japan, which is why she had to leave and come to Korea. Yu-sung also believes that's why it must have been difficult for her to ask for help since other students are more skilled than her. Yu-sung then calls Sumire and gives her a strand of his hair. Looking surprised, Sumire asks if it's okay, and Yu-sung assures her he is fine. Yu-sung also reminds her that it's her method, hearing which she seems deeply grateful. Sumire gives a concern seeing the skeleton she summoned using Yu-sung's hair. She notices that the skeleton now is very different from the one she summoned earlier. She then commands this skeleton to attack the tree. Heeding her order, the skeleton turns around to face the tree. The skeleton then launches a powerful punch at the tree's trunk, leaving a punch mark there. But this time, the skeleton doesn't crumble into pieces like before. Sumire is bewildered as she sees the tree suddenly explode into smithereens. Unable to believe this, she mutters that it's impossible. Sumire says she could only mimic around 30% of the original's ability, while Yu-sung replies that this should be enough to be helpful. Sumire stares at Yu-sung and gives an appreciative look at him. She then grabs his hand and requests if he can give her 10 more of his hairs. Meanwhile, back in his office, the headmaster is looking at the screen of what seems like a map with a few round dots on it. At that moment, Xiao walks in as the principal tells him he was waiting for him and asks if it's his first time being a test supervisor. Xiao affirms and claims he has made every necessary preparation to avoid any mistakes as the principal reminds him there's only a one thing dangerous on the Jewel Island. Xiao says they have given enough warnings so the students don't walk in by accident. The principal mentions that last year a first-year student fearlessly entered and cleared that, and Xiao says he knows that student is the current student council president. Xiao explains that news of Shin Haeun has reached Skyscraper Academy, while the principal calls her a born genius from the Shurno family. The principal also claims that only a monster can kill that monster on the island. A large ship is sailing on the ocean under a clear sky. Adela is standing on the deck, enjoying the ride as her hair blows in the wind. She has her eyes closed, but quickly opens them when someone asks what she is doing. A girl standing behind her, named Kim Yuna, asks Adela why she has a serious face. However, Adela remains silent, causing Yuna to look cross and ask if Adela is ignoring her. Yuna then steps in front of Adela, blocking her path, and suggests a match, noting a nearby training area. Adela keeps silent for a moment before saying that it's only been 3 days. Yuna, looking puzzled, asks what Adela means. Adela explains that it's only been 3 days since Yuna lost a match with her. Despite this, Yuna presses Adela for a rematch, but Adela doesn't want one. Annoyed, Adela asks why Yuna is so persistent, to which Yuna replies that she hates losing. The two of them exchange intense gazes. At that moment, Adela hears someone mention the name Yusung, causing her and Yuna to turn sideways. They see Yusung walking along with his 3 friends, all laughing and looking happy. Yuna recognizes Yusung as the new transfer student. She then looks over at Adela and notices that Adela is continuously staring at Yusung. Yuna points out that she's surprised to see Adela show such interest in the new transfer student. But she remarks that it's understandable since Yusung, the disciple of the Fist King, had defeated Adela's grandfather. Adela tells Yuna that this has nothing to do with her. Yuna shrugs and says that one can never be sure. She leans in closer to Adela and mutters that Jaehyun's number 1 can change anytime. Adela pushes Yuna aside and reminds her that if that happens, Yuna will fall to 3rd place. With this, Adela walks away while Yuna shouts at her to stop. Yuna gives a displeased look and shrieks angrily at Adela's attitude. She tiesques and mutters that it's all annoying. And with a serious look, she shifts her gaze to Yusung. Currently, the ship is headed towards Jewel Island. Saiwoo is explaining the details regarding the island to the others. The true identity of Jewel Island is a rank 7 boss monster called the Abyss Whale. It's a huge monster that can devour a cruise ship in a single bite. Long ago, that monster was subjugated by the Fist King and other legendary hunters. Rinia asks how the whale became Jewel Island. Samaya raises her hand and explains that it's because of the whale's residual mana. Saiwoo confirms this, adding that due to the residual mana, the whale's corpse absorbed the surrounding reef's attributes and became a large island. As a result, mana-infused plants and animals were born on the island. As time passed, many animals and plants appeared, creating a whole ecosystem. The reason the island was called Jewel Island is that all the monsters there had jewel-like or on their bodies. Yusung asks if it's because the reef reacted to mana, but Saiwoo says it's still not confirmed. Saiwoo then shows the scoreboard, indicating different ranked monsters and their point values. Rinia marvels at the golem's 200 points, while Saiwoo explains that a low-rank class can't catch a golem, as it's a rank 3 boss. Saiwoo reminds them that their goal is only to go for rank 1 or rank 2 monsters and play it safe. The 3 clap in appreciation of Saiwoo's presentation. With this, Saiwoo suggests they enjoy the cruise now, as they might not get another chance. He also mentions there's plenty of delicious food to try and new experiences to enjoy. Yusung and the others are currently enjoying trying different food items. They all seem amazed at how delicious everything is. Despite already being full, they keep on eating and eating. They begin going through the desserts, and at this point, they are stuffed. Finally, they are unable to take another bite, being too full. The night has fallen, and the 4 of them are sitting outside on benches on the deck of the ship. Saiwoo gives a huge sigh and says he ate too much, while Rinia says she might throw up. Only Yusung looks alright and smiling, says it was fun. Saiwoo and Rinia decide to rest and leave as Yusung and Samaya bid them good night. Samaya, who seems to be blushing, looks over at Yusung through the corner of her eyes. She says that she felt the time passed very quickly today. Yusung agrees, saying he hasn't felt such joy since living in the mountains, while Samaya adds they'll arrive at Jewel Island the next day. Samaya looks gloomy as she claims she doesn't want to be a burden on Yusung. But she quickly apologizes for talking negatively at such a happy moment. She explains that she always worries when she's too happy because she fears she'll mess things up. Yusung reassuringly tells Samaya that it's all okay, causing her to give a surprised look. Yusung tells her not to blame herself, as everyone makes mistakes, and says he will always help her since they are partners. Samaya is touched hearing this and, blushing red, tells Yusung he is very kind. She then claims that Yusung will never make a mistake, prompting Yusung to question if he really won't. Hearing the word mistake, Yusung flashes back to his childhood, recalling silly errors like capturing a bear cub or eating poisonous mushrooms. Not just that, one day Yusung had worn a pocket on his head and received a scolding from his master. Thinking about all these, Yusung claims he had made a lot of mistakes as well. Samaya is shocked to learn Yusung once made mistakes, and Yusung explains that his master always corrected him. Yusung claims out that his master is a very important person in his life. Samaya says she understands Yusung's feelings. She also admits that her family is very important to her as well. Looking saddened, Samaya says she hasn't seen her family since she transferred, and Yusung asks if she misses them. Samaya admits she misses them but says it's alright since it was her own decision to come to Jaehyun. She also mentions that she always looks at photos of her family. Saying so, she asks Yusung if he wants to see those photos. and she shows Yusung her family photo, explaining who each person is. She looks pleased as she points out that her siblings are very cute, which Yusung agrees with. Sumire says that unlike her, her sister is very mischievous, and at that moment, Yusung asks if he can ask her a question. Yusung questions her about why she transferred to such a faraway place. Yusung also makes it clear that he doesn't believe the rumors that Sumire hurt her classmates. Sumire suddenly looks very nervous as her eyes widen in concern. With this, she begins to explain the truth about what actually happened. Sumire begins explaining how she suddenly lost control of her trait at her previous academy. A dark, powerful aura escaped her and accidentally summoned skeletons. Her classmates were all terrified and ran away from her. Sumire was left all alone in tears. Some of her classmates were injured and they put all the blame on her. They called her shameless and pointed out that all of it happened because she collects hair. Sumire was unable to talk back or defend herself. She began crying that she didn't mean any of it. But in the end, she ended up running away from everyone. Relaying this tragic backstory, Sumire is in tears as Yusung expresses his sympathy for her. Yusung then holds Sumire's hand and tells her not to say anything as it's causing her pain. Sumire looks appreciatively at Yusung and apologizes. Yusung says it's alright and claims everyone has something in their lives they want to hide. Sumire becomes silent for a moment, her cheeks turning red in nervousness. And she addresses Yusung and tells him he is very attentive. Early the next morning, the sun has just risen as the ship finally arrives at Jewel Island. The island is glistening in the morning sun, looking very heavenly as a flock of birds flies above it. Instructor Xiao looks up at the birds as he stands on the deck. He closes his eyes and breathes in the island air, muttering that they've finally arrived. He then gazes at Jewel Island, its magnificent colored crystals sparkling in the sunlight. Saiwu looks terrified as he runs alone through the island's forest. He continues sprinting forward, and the look on his face suggests he is running from something. Looking hopeless, he bellows out for someone to help him. But he is currently in the deepest part of the woods, all alone with nobody to hear him. It's the first day on Jewel Island. Sumire, who looks nervous, is staring at the tissue in her hand, inside which she has probably kept the hairs. She is currently in middle of the test. Earlier that day, after the students disembarked, Xiao gathered them to give information regarding the test. He explained that the size of the jewel depends on a monster's ranking, and a higher rank means more points. Whenever a student puts the jewel in their pocket, they receive the points. Xiao pointed out that the rules are simple: students have to gather as many jewels as they can within 2 hours. Sumire feels like she is useless and doesn't want to be a burden for Yusung. Meanwhile, Yusung calls out to Sumire and suggests they go separate ways for now. Sumire says she understands they need to gather jewels separately. Yusung reminds Sumire she has his hair and assures her she won't have problems with even rank 3 monsters. He grabs her hands and tells her not to be nervous. He also tells Sumire she can do it, causing her to blush in admiration. With this, Yusung waves Sumire goodbye and walks away. Sumire watches in silence as Yusung disappears into the forest, trying to convince herself that she can do it. She looks at the tissue in her hand and notes that she has Yusung's hair in it, deciding to use one now. At that very moment, something comes charging towards Sumire from behind, and she is unaware of it. At the last moment, Sumire hears the noise and, in puzzlement, turns around. She gives a frightened squeal as something comes crashing onto her. On a branch of a tree, a green snake is resting with a jewel on its back. Suddenly, an arrow pierces it from the side, killing it. Saiwu, who just fired the arrow, receives 1 point. He warns Rinia to be careful, noting they are surrounded. Saiwu reminds Rinia they are in the forest and tells her to control her power and not overdo it. Rinia says she knows and tells Saiwu to use his clairvoyance to find her something to target. Saiwu informs Rinia there's a deer in Port 3 and tells her to take care of it. Suddenly, a deer comes charging at the two from behind. Rinia swiftly turns around and raises her hand. She then produces massive flames and shoots them right at the charging deer. As the deer drops dead, Rinia points out that she was almost too late and reminds Saiwu to warn her earlier next time. At that moment, a huge boar charges towards Saiwu as he aims his bow at it. He releases the arrow, but it misses. The boar then slams into Saiwu, causing his barrier to be reduced to 60%. Saiwu gives a concerned look. He then summons a knife and pierces it into the head of the boar. With this, the boar dies, and Rinia runs to Saiwu, worried and calling out his name. Saiwu grips the knife tightly and tries to pull it out. He acknowledges that he isn't used to the bow yet. Rinia asks Saiwu if he is okay, and Saiwu says he is, though his barrier sustained considerable damage. Saiwu looks disappointed that once again he had to receive help. Rinia suggests they take a rest, which Saiwu agrees to, claiming he needs to restore his barrier as well. Rinia then tells Saiwoo to take a break while she goes and makes some preparations. So, Saiwoo lies down on his back and takes a long breath. Grinning, he says he can't believe he was almost eliminated. He wonders how Yusung and Sumire must be doing. But he is sure that Yusung must be fine. A drone is hovering above the island as, below in the forest, some figures are running along a path. A group of 4, all looking terrified, are fleeing from something. The guy at the front shouts out, asking who touched the jewel elephant. The girl with black hair proposes they fight it, but the leader declines, saying taking on a rank 3 monster would be suicidal. Suddenly, the leader's expression changes to bewildered as he halts in his tracks. In front of them is a large cliff. It's a dead end. The 4 of them all mutter that they are doomed. The jewel elephant finally catches up with them. Its eyes looking murderous, the elephant gives a loud roar. The 4 turn around slowly and realize they have no choice as they begin readying their traits. Doing so, they charge at the elephant, determined to fight back. The guy under the hood touches the ground and causes poison to travel towards the elephant, trapping it. The girl with black hair summons a massive hand which she uses to grab the girl with brown hair, who is wielding a huge hammer. The black-haired girl then makes the hand fling the brown-haired girl upwards into the air, higher than the elephant. Once the girl is high enough, she raises her hammer and, using atomic break, causes the hammer's end to light on fire as she brings it down and strikes the elephant's head with force. Watching from the side, the leader asks if the elephant is dead. The girl who struck the hammer looks down and is startled. It appears her attack did no damage to the elephant. The elephant suddenly gives a deafening roar, causing the girl to jump off it with a frightened scream. She bellows out that her attack didn't work. The leader raises both arms and tells the others to get behind him. He then produces a shield around them. But it's of no use as the elephant shatters the shield, causing the 4 of them to stumble to the ground. The black-haired girl asks if they're doomed, and the leader agrees it's over. The girl puts her hand on the leader's shoulder and says she has always wanted to say something. The elephant begins charging towards the 4 of them. But out of nowhere, Yusung jumps down between the 4 and the elephant at that moment. Yusung claims that he finally found the elephant. Meanwhile, the others are all puzzled seeing Yusung there. As the elephant nears Yusung, he pulls back a punch and directs it directly at the elephant, smashing it onto the ground. The leader and the girl are both bewildered seeing Yusung defeat the elephant with a single attack. Yusung then takes the jewel from the elephant for himself. He seems satisfied that everything is going smoothly as he wonders if Sumire is doing okay. Sumire yells loudly as someone slams into her, causing her to fall backward and massage her head in pain. She hears a familiar cry and looks in front of her. There, she sees a small creature, which she identifies as a carbuncle. Her expression shifts from concern to happy as she claims she is glad and wonders what the carbuncle is doing. The carbuncle suddenly grabs Sumire's tissue with its trunk, with Sumire shouts at it to stop. Nervously, Sumire calls the carbuncle a good boy, hoping it will return the handkerchief. Suddenly, the carbuncle angrily jumps at Sumire and slaps her cheek with its tail. Sumire massages her cheek, and as the carbuncle hisses at her, she wonders how to get the tissue back. She gets an idea, plucks a flower from a nearby bush, and offers it to the carbuncle in exchange for her tissues paper. The carbuncle curiously smells the flower and hisses at her as Sumire wonders if it didn't like the scent. Sumire begins to worry, thinking about how she can get back the handkerchief. At once, she gets another idea. Sumire then finds a flat stone and lays it in front of the carbuncle. She picks more flowers and puts them on the stone, then begins crushing them. She adds some honey to the crushed flowers and adds some carrots over it. With this, she exclaims it's done. Sumire has created a tasty treat for the carbuncle. She asks the carbuncle if it likes it, and notices it is drooling. She then hovers the treat in the carbuncle's face and throws it away, causing the carbuncle to run after it. Sumire grabs the tissue paper back and is glad there's no hair missing. She turns around, and seeing the carbuncle still there, she pulls out a hair. The carbuncle, who is busy eating the snack, senses something wrong and turns back. It gives a shriek as a skeleton summoned by Sumire grabs hold of it. Sumire apologizes to the carbuncle and points out that it will grow another jewel soon. As the skeleton begins pulling the carbuncle's jewel out, it tears up and then screams. Somewhere, a girl is ready to start streaming. She explains to her viewers that she was late because of a burger order she made from Star Burger. She also makes it clear that she isn't advertising the burger just because she is a model for that brand. Finally, she turns on the camera and greets all her viewers. Her name is Amy Rose, a 27th ranking student, as she apologizes to her viewers for the delay and reminds them there's a big event, telling them to stay tuned. She claims she has finished all the preparations and seems satisfied seeing the viewers increasing. She then says she will begin by checking out the rankings. The student in rank 1 is Adela, which Amy claims is as expected. Amy explains that among J and 7, Adela is the only one who's undefeated. Amy also points out that it's never enough to describe Adela and calls her the Hunter World's most promising prospect. The student at rank 2 is Kim Yuna. Her trait is electricity with massive destructive power. Currently on the island, Kim has defeated a monster and walks away, leaving the corpse for a guy in glasses to handle. The guy, his name Park Soo-yoon, acknowledges that Kim is really impressive. The monster that Kim defeated is a massive, ugly-looking one. Amy then moves to third place, and surprisingly, the student in third place is Shin Yoosung. Amy, as well as her viewers, are all unable to believe someone like Yoosung from F class is in the top 3. She then proceeds to see what Yoosung is currently doing on the island. On the screen, she sees that Yoosung is charging at the rank 3 monster alone. Yoosung takes a great leap and defeats the elephant with a single attack, seeing which Amy shrieks out it's not possible. She then wonders if Yoosung is really F rank, as he dealt with a rank 3 monster so easily. Amy begins to blush as she claims that Yoosung is very handsome. She also believes Yoosung has the potential to become a star and decides to watch him closely. Moreover, she wants to meet him and try to bring him on her stream. Now it's time to see who's fourth, and seeing it, Amy is even more shocked. It's Sumire, who somehow has got the 4th ranking. Amy explains to her viewers that Sumire is in F class and she's always at the bottom. Amy then begins wondering how Sumire reached 4th place so suddenly. When Amy inspects Sumire, she finds Sumire cooking while humming excitedly. Amy is bewildered as she wonders who's earning points for Sumire. Back on the island, Sumire is humming, looking pleased, and has made a curry. She claims that her previous encounter with the carbuncle was dangerous, and luckily her carrot treat worked well. The curry she is making has turned out good, and she wants to finish preparations quickly before Yoosung returns. She also wonders how Yoosung's skeleton must be doing now. She notes that the skeleton was really fast, like Yoosung. But still, as she was the summoner, she is certain the skeleton has been influenced by her mana and might not be so strong. But little does she know, the skeleton has already defeated countless monsters and collected a vast number of jewels. Yoosung and Sumire are sitting down, ready to eat as Sumire's curry is fully cooked. Sumire removes the lid off the box, revealing rice inside, and then dips the spoon into the curry. She withdraws a spoonful of curry and mixes it with the rice. After that, she reaches for the chicken balls, saying it's the only thing left to put on top of the dinner. She then tops the chicken balls on the curry and declares it's ready. Sumire hands over the plate to Yoosung. Yoosung gratefully accepts the plate, thanking Sumire. Yoosung digs the spoon into the plate and withdraws a mouthful of a mixture of rice and curry. He then gracefully puts it into his mouth while Sumire watches nervously. Suddenly, Yoosung's eyes begin sparkling as he finds the taste of the curry quite exquisite. He can feel the sweetness of the onion and the soft texture of the potato, making the aroma of the curry strong. Yoosung then proceeds to try the fried meatball. Chewing on it, he can feel its hotness perfectly fitting with the previous taste. He believes the fried chicken was just made for the curry itself. He takes another bite of the curry and wonders if this is how real curry must taste. He also finds it completely different from the one his master used to prepare. Meanwhile, Sumire is concerned that Yoosung isn't liking the curry. She gets terrified when Yoosung calls her name. But Yoosung, who has cleared his plate, asks for one more serving. Previously concerned, Sumire instantly gives a smile of relief. When she is about to fill up the plate, they both notice something and look up. A few feet above the ground, a screen has appeared, announcing that the halfway results will be announced now. At first place is Adela and at second place, Kim Yuna. Somewhere on the island, Sai-woo and Rinia are also looking up at the rankings. Both of them are surprised when noticed that the third place is Shin Yoosung. They begin cheering with happiness. However, they receive the shock of their lives when fourth place is Sumire. Sumire, who is preparing another serving of curry for Yoosung, gets dumbfounded seeing her own rank. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, Metro City branch in South Korea, Mei Lin, the Academy City's branch manager, is on her way somewhere. After walking some more, she finally arrives at her destination and knocks on the door. Through the door camera, someone sees it's Mei and grants her entry. Mei pushes the door open and walks in. Once inside, she sees massive screens being observed by a few people. On the screens, the exam on the Jewel Island is currently being someone. Mei is surprised to see the association's president monitoring the students from JN Academy. The president claims that he is curious about someone. Well, obviously that someone is Yoosung, as even the president is aware Yoosung is the Fist King's disciple. Mei says it's strange for the president to be interested in a student with F rank, but the president notes that Yusung is currently 3rd rank. Mei exclaims that it's an amazing achievement for an F rank. The president explains that the traits rank can only measure things up to a certain point. Mei asks the president if he is implying that Yusung has more talent than the legendary hunters. The president says that it's all his guess for now. He also claims that he is able to see something that they all have been craving. Meanwhile, back on Jewel Island, Sumire is wiping the plate dry while also expressing her surprise at learning she is ranked 4th. Yusung points out that they are only ranked 4th in the test. And to join the 7s, Yusung says they have to earn a lot more points. Yusung acknowledges he might sound greedy but says he is confident he can achieve that goal with Sumire's help. Hearing this, Sumire is deeply touched and begins tearing up. She says that she doesn't know how much she can be of help but promises to do her best. At that moment, 2 students arrive, peeking at Yusung and Sumire from behind a nearby bush. Among the 2, one is a guy and the other is a girl. The guy grins, saying they finally found Yusung and thinks they are lucky that day. Under a night sky, 4 hands raise drinks and cheer in celebration. 4 students are sitting together in a circle. They put together all the jewels they collected and look down at them, appearing very happy. The guy with blonde hair says they will definitely do well in the rankings. The girl is confident they'll get high-ranking dorms, while the short-haired guy just wants the exam to be over so they can go back. At that moment, someone arrives, calling the 4 noisy and telling them to be ashamed of being too loud as B-rank students. A tall guy with long hair, accompanied by a girl, walks out of the nearby bush. The long-haired guy mocks the 4 for moving around in a group like that. The girl in the group asks the guy why he is there. The guy says it's simple and points at the jewels the group gathered, claiming he will take them. Hearing this, the 2 guys shout that the jewels are theirs and warn the long-haired guy to leave. The long-haired guy says that the 4 aren't thinking properly. He shows his sharp claw-like nails and claims looting is the right of the strong. He also asks the 4 if they plan on fighting back. The blonde from the group tells the girl named Jiyeon to take the jewels and run. Jiyeon points out that they are 4, why should they run? The blonde claims that the long-haired guy, whose name is Victor, is an A-class ranker. The blonde then explains that the 3 of them will try to buy time for Jiyeon to get far away and turn in the points. The other girl says she hates this plan, but the short-haired guy mentions that they have no other choice. Jiyeon then uses her trait, and gets ready to run as fast as she can. Seeing this, Victor warns the 4 they have made the wrong choice. The blonde shouts at Victor to shut up as the 3 of them charge forward. Victor summons wings from his back and gets ready to fight, while the girl with him also prepares. Victor's face turns monstrous as he promises to show why he's called the Knight's Victor. The clash starts, followed by a loud shouting noise. The mid-match results are about to be announced. Victor is holding onto a jewel as he and the girl have successfully managed to defeat the group and loot them. In 1st ranking is Adela, in 2nd Kim Yuna, in 3rd Shin Yusung. Victor is surprised to see Yusung in 3rd position and also notices the girl sitting next to Yusung is in F class. He thinks he doesn't need to worry about Sumire and decides to just eliminate Yusung. Victor then gives a grin as he considers himself very lucky that day. Sumire decides to set up a tent since it's late, and Yusung agrees it's a good idea. Yusung suddenly senses something and swiftly gets up, startling Sumire. Looking puzzled, Sumire asks what's wrong but gives a shriek as thousands upon thousands of bats come flying towards her and Yusung. Yusung is staring at the bats while Sumire, looking terrified, shouts out that the bats are surrounding them. Within seconds, the 2 of them are enveloped in darkness, as a voice demands them to hand over their pockets. Victor appears, flying down, and tells Yusung and Sumire they don't have a choice. Sumire becomes silent for a moment and then shrieks out that Victor is a point hunter. She explains that point hunters are bad students who, instead of hunting monsters, steal points from others. Meanwhile, Victor thinks Yusung and Sumire must be scared of him. Yusung finally speaks and says he is sorry. He then declares he won't give any of his points to anyone. The girl with Victor reveals that Victor gets really angry when he is denied something. This becomes obvious as Victor's face suddenly turns terrible and he snarls his teeth. He then flexes his claws and promises to rip Yusung into shreds, making Sumire look terrified. Yusung doesn't react and just closes his eyes. Seeing this, Victor asks Yusung if he has lost his mind and remarks that Yusung won't be able to see anything in the darkness anyway. Victor then claims he can move really fast in his transformed state and lunges at Yusung to attack him from behind. The girl chewing the gum thinks it's over. But before Victor can lay his claws on Yusung, Yusung suddenly disappears. And out of nowhere, something strikes Victor from the side. Yusung has his fingers clenched in a fist as he prepares the battle god style technique. His eyes begin glowing and he directs the punch straight at Victor. His fist connects with Victor's body and causes a blinding light to spread everywhere. From outside, the massive dome of bats begins to glow, and a huge explosion erupts from inside. Sumire is open-mouthed in shock. Meanwhile, the girl with the gum, seeing all this, is bewildered. A drone is flying over what seems like a campsite. Below in the camps, there are a lot of students, all looking happy and busy with their own tasks. A blue-haired guy is standing in front of a cave opening, wiping his glasses clean. He curses, noting that things went wrong from the start. Days ago, he had asked Yuna for help, as she is the strongest in their class, and wanted her to join his group. He had even begged her. Yuna had pointed out that the guy himself made the strategy on his own. And she had asked if his group even needed her. Yuna had then made it clear she was not interested. She had also pointed out that whatever the guy says, he is just in need of points. Looking nervous, the guy had asked Yuna what she was saying. With a smile, Yuna had explained that the guy is close to being ousted from the Sevens, so he is desperate for help. The guy had just stood like a statue, and Yuna had asked him if he had any complaints. With electricity crackling around her, she had also mentioned that the guy might just want to take her points. Taken aback, the guy had denied this and agreed not to press Yuna into joining his group. With this, he had walked away, and Yuna had ordered him to get her a drink before he left. At present, the guy, busy cleaning his glasses, clenches his teeth in anger as he remembers the above scene. He takes a long breath to calm himself down. Putting on his glasses, he admits that skill is the only thing that matters. He then turns around and gathers the attention of everyone. He instructs the party leaders to confirm the party members and tells everyone to check their equipment before subjugation. He confidently declares that they will definitely clear this no matter what. With this, he turns around and looking up at the massive dark cave, decides it's more important now. Meanwhile, somewhere in a different cave, the girl who was chewing bubble gum regains consciousness and groaning, opens her eyes. She is unsure where she is. Her eyes fall on Victor, lying beaten up and captured, right in front of her, and she lets out a frightened scream. She then remembers what had happened earlier. She had been bewildered when she saw Yusung defeat Victor with a single attack. She also found it hard to believe that Yusung is an F-class student. She then realized she couldn't defeat him and decided to crawl away and escape. However, a skeleton had appeared right in front of her. Seeing the skeleton, she became terrified, broke into sweat, and then passed out. And now, at present, the girl wonders if the skeleton she saw previously is a summon of Sumire. She decides to think clearly and concludes that Sumire is just lucky to have partnered with Yusung. She manages to stand on her feet, hands still tied behind her, and feels confident she can subdue Sumire. She thinks it's her only chance as she cuts the rope binding her into pieces. She then pulls on the rope binding Victor and, deciding to retreat, pulls him along with her. Despite retreating now, she is determined to get her revenge. Suddenly, she notices something ahead and gives a shriek. A skeleton seems to be blocking the path. The girl claims that back then she was surprised, but now she isn't afraid of the skeleton. She also says that because the skeleton scared her before, she will tear it down now. And she produces massive laser-like whips which easily cut through the large crystal stones in the cave. The lasers then move straight towards the skeleton. At the last moment, the skeleton summons a shield around itself, stopping the lasers. The girl is puzzled as the cave fills with dazzling light. Meanwhile, Yusung and Sumire, who are outside the cave, notice a loud noise coming from inside. Sumire walks into the cave, telling the hostage to surrender calmly. But she's shocked to see her skeleton has already subdued the hostage girl and calls the skeleton amazing. Victor, still tied on the ground, hopes he'll be disqualified rather than face this humiliation. Inside a tent, the guy in glasses is currently busy practicing math. At that moment, someone calls him from outside, addressing him as Suyun, and requesting if he can come out. The person outside, in a frightened voice, informs that there's been a commotion due to an intruder. Suyun is surprised to hear there's an intruder as he thought only A-class students were aware of the plan. Nonetheless, he puts down the pen and peers outside the tent's opening. He instructs that person to guide him. Suyun is on his way to confront the intruder. He points out that two of their members are wounded and wonders who the intruder might be. After a while, he comes face to face with the intruder and recognizes who it is. The intruders are none other than Yusung, Sumire, and her summoned skeleton. Seeing Yusung arrive in the middle of the night, Suyun asks if he knows their plans, and Yusung affirms, saying he has an informant. Suyun says he won't ask who it is since it's obvious. He pushes back his glasses and asks what Yusung wants. Suyun also points out that since their number is large and outnumbers Yusung's party, Yusung probably won't fight them. With this, both of them stare at each other as Yusung claims he has no intention of avoiding a fight. Yusung says that what he really wants is priority regarding the subjugation. He asks Suyun to let him subjugate the crystal first. Hearing this request, Suyun is startled, wondering how Yusung and Sumire, being only F rank, can subdue the crystal golem. Suyun also reveals that, because the subjugation is tough, he has gathered almost all the A-class students and thinks Yusung is dumb. A guy among the group gives a booming laugh, mocking Yusung for saying he wants to subjugate the golem. Another girl giggles and says that even if Yusung is the Fist King's disciple, he is being too arrogant. Another guy asks Suyun if they have to continue listening to Yusung and suggests they just beat him and Sumire. However, Suyun disagrees with this suggestion. He claims that since Yusung wants to die, they shouldn't stop him. He steps aside and allows Yusung and his team to enter the cave. With this permission, Yusung and Sumire, accompanied by the skeleton, move forward. A girl asks Suyun if he's sure that's okay and points out what if Yusung really defeats the golem. Suyun addresses the girl as Han Seala and tells her to let Yusung be. Suyun mentions that even if Yusung is the Fist King's disciple, there's nothing anyone can do about his natural-born talent. Suyun also believes that inside the cave, Yusung will learn a lesson. Suyun hopes Yusung will realize the gap between innate talent and the despair of being unable to bridge it. Suyun then says he will leave, as Seala tells him he did a good job. Walking away, Suyun claims he will finish off what he was studying. Meanwhile, Yusung and Sumire move deeper into the cave, and Sumire exclaims in awe at the beautiful crystals hanging from the walls. She notes that the information they received was really true, that so many people gathered at a place. Yusung says that those people likely want to reduce the point gap with the sevens. Sumire is still unconvinced as Yusung explains that grouping means less work. Sumire says that it's still strange since no one even tried to stop them. Remembering some had laughed at them, Sumire asks if no one takes them seriously because of their F-rank traits. Yusung stops and calls out to Sumire, who gives a startled look. Suddenly, Yusung lunges at Sumire and gives her a hug, puzzling her. However, it becomes clear as the skeleton summons a shield to protect them from a heavy explosion nearby. Yusung says that was dangerous, while Sumire looks like she's passed out from fear. Yusung then tells Sumire to always be prepared. He explains that the opponent they are about to face is no joke. Somewhere in a facility, a woman is looking over at the massive screen in front of her. She seems very focused, with a cup of tea in her hand. She appears to be inspecting the events happening on the Jewel Island. As expected, her focus is drawn to Yusung. The instructor, Xiao, arrives and looking at the screen, asks if Yusung and Sumire really entered the crystal cave. As he sees the icon of that cave, he confirms it's definitely that place. The woman points out that Xiao has already heard what's residing inside that cave. Xiao asks if the boss in the cave isn't rank 4, and the woman confirms that it is. Xiao then mentions he had told the students to avoid that area. He wants to stop those two, but the woman refuses. Xiao asks if those two aren't in any danger. The woman takes a swig of tea and admits that it's dangerous. But she also mentions that it's a hunter's job to take risks. She points out that Xiao is mistaken and explains the test is a massive filter to identify which students don't fit. Xiao then realizes why the woman asked him to warn the students beforehand, so if something happens to them, the students will be liable. Meanwhile, back at the crystal cave, the large golem has noticed Yusung and Sumire. Yusung says he wants to ask Sumire a favor and tells her to focus on giving mana to the skeleton. Sumire points out that doing so, she can lose control over the skeleton, but Yusung assures her to trust the process. Yusung also mentions that if he, the skeleton and Sumire have no trust, they can't become partners. Sumire gulps and agrees to lend as much mana as she can to the skeleton. The skeleton and Yusung together charge at the golem. Sumire is aware that the mana link lasts only 10 seconds and wonders if the fight will end before that. The golem raises its arm to crush Yusung and the skeleton, as Sumire commands the skeleton to block it. A massive explosion occurs, producing a blinding flash of light. Sumire is nearly pushed backward due to the pressure. She then looks ahead and sees the golem's attack has been stopped by the skeleton's punch. Yusung looks pleased with the skeleton as it charges up a punch to strike back. The skeleton then directs the punch towards the golem. Yusung praises Sumire and claims the skeleton is just like him as the golem roars loudly in fury. The golem prepares to attack the skeleton back. Sumire is hopeful they can do it and tells the skeleton to hang in there. The golem's arm is about to crush the skeleton when it suddenly raises its arm and stops it. Sumire is surprised to see the skeleton handle an unknown technique as the golem pushes the skeleton back with fork. Seeing the skeleton go toe-to-toe with the golem, Sumire wonders if the skeleton has Yusung's strength. Meanwhile, Yusung leaps around and goes behind the golem. Sumire increases the mana and bellows out, giving Yusung the signal. The skeleton applies more force and pushes the golem backward as Yusung jumps at it. Yusung mutters that Samayer has done well as he charges up a punch in midair. He then goes straight for the golem's head and punches it right in its eye. A huge explosion shakes the cave. The golem begins growling as cracks appear on its head. With this, the golem begins crumbling and falling apart into pieces. Samayer, in awe, exclaims that they did it. The golem's body slams onto the floor. Samayer shouts out, praising Yusung and the skeleton for their work. She then turns to the skeleton, who gives her a thumbs up. Seeing this, Samayer is in shock. But Yusung, who isn't celebrating, tells Samayer it's not time to relax. He claims that the subjugation isn't over yet. Yusung says that it's not over yet. Samayer is taken aback hearing this when suddenly she gives a shriek. She feels the cave starting to shake and wonders if it's an earthquake. Yusung explains that it was just a rite of passage. Staring ahead, he claims the real fight is about to begin. From the darkness, another golem appears. Not just that, following that golem, many others arrive as well. Seeing this, Samayer is in absolute panic, as she bellows out that they are now in trouble. Yusung stares at the golem and claims they appeared faster than he thought. He also realizes the skeleton is damaged from the last fight and won't be able to hold on much longer. Also he knows that if he tries to break through the front, Samayer will be in danger. Yusung is also certain that if the golems surround them, injuries will be unavoidable. He thinks it will be better if there's a wall behind them while they face the golems in front. He then decides to go in first. He instructs Samayer to use the skeleton to protect herself while he fights, but Samayer expresses uncertainty. Yusung reminds Samayer that a hunter has to make the best decision in the worst situation. He also mentions that partners have to believe in each other's decisions. HR then tells Samayer to believe in him as he pushes himself forward at blinding speed. Samayer is startled seeing this as Yusung sprints towards the golems. He is quick with fast reflexes. He prepares a punch and aims it at one of the golems' heads. Hit by the attack, that golem's head gets crushed. Yusung counts 1 as he leaps towards another golem and crushes its head as well, counting 2. He quickly defeats another golem and counts 3. Meanwhile, Samayer is open-mouthed in awe seeing Yusung deal with the golems with just 1 attack. She mutters that Yusung is amazing. Yusung finds it strange that the golems are letting him attack their heads too easily. He then attacks another golem's head but is shocked when he sees none of the golems have collapsed. He realizes that the golem's power source might not be in their heads. Samayer shouts out, warning Yusung to look behind. Yusung swiftly turns around as a golem's arms are about to crush him. The golem's arms join together with massive force as Samayer screams out for Yusung. But Yusung, who managed to escape in time, apologizes to Samayer for making her worry. Yusung claims he thought the golem's core would surely be in their heads and admits he was too complacent. A bright glow appears from the golems. Yusung decides to recall what his master taught him. A golem is a monster that possesses a huge magic power orb, usually in its head or chest. Most hunters avoid attacking a golem's arms or legs as the easier way is to destroy the core in the golem's head or chest. His master had also mentioned that destroying their arms would make them unable to move and finish them off. Yusung had expressed a desire to be like his master, prompting the master to remind him it's too early for that. The master had then asked Yusung what he would do if a golem didn't have a core in its head or chest. But Yusung wasn't able to answer. So the master had explained the way one could take care of such golems. Recalling this memory, Yusung remembers the way and steps back. Samayer asks if he is okay, and Yusung claims he just remembered the weakness of those golems. Yusung then points out that those golems are like an illusion and their core is somewhere around there. Yusung begins moving his gaze around, inspecting every corner. Shortly, he sees something glowing red in the darkness. He takes a clearer look and finally realizes it's the real core. Meanwhile, the woman who is still spying on Yusung says it's amazing. She is surprised that Yusung managed to find the core so easily. The entire cave and its surroundings are shaking. The group of students camped there are all puzzled as they feel the tremor. Suyun is standing alone, staring into the dark cave. He is certain that the shaking is caused by the awakening of the crystal golem. Suyun knows that the reconnaissance group saw a total of 5 golems and finds it hard to believe Yusung has already defeated them. He wonders if there might have been a passageway they didn't find before. He believes that this is bad. The other students are discussing what's happening, unable to accept that Yusung has really managed to make it past the golems. Suyun fixes his glasses and assures the others not to worry. He tells them not to make a fuss and points out confidently that F-class students can never hunt a golem. He then turns to the group and asks if they are scared. After some consideration, The group members convince themselves that Yoosung and Sumire will fail and get carried to the infirmary. Suyun suggests that they should now be wary of B and S class students due to the earthquake. He instructs the reconnaissance group to check things out and Group A to check the surroundings. As for Group B, they are asked to check the hunter equipment. At that moment, student comes running towards Suyun and asks him what they should do. Suyun points out that the passageway is narrow and asks for the 2 highest-ranking students. Then he decides to go inside the cave himself. Meanwhile, inside the cave, Yoosung is in an offensive position as he tells Sumire to step back. After that, he activates heightened focus and pulls back a punch. Muttering a battle god style, he throws the punch with all his might. After a blinding flash of light, a powerful blow erupts from Yoosung's fist, heading straight for the golem's core. The attack strikes the core, shattering the crystal around it. Yoosung, with his palm still raised, gazes at the dust that is now swirling around. He keeps gazing when suddenly his eyes widen in shock. The system begins issuing a high-energy danger alert. There seems to be some error as the danger alert continues flashing. The crystal around the golem's core shatters, revealing glowing energy, and the system detects an impending explosion. Sumire is puzzled seeing all these warnings. More and more warnings begin appearing as Yoosung stares intently. Suddenly he turns around and orders Sumire to lie down on the ground. He bellows out at Sumire to hurry. The energy core starts expanding and then it explodes. Sumire is crouched on the ground while Yoosung and the skeleton are standing, as the explosion nears them. Both of them quickly raise their hands. The explosion fills the whole cave, bathing it in a blinding flash of light. A while later, as the dust clears, Sumire raises her head, opening her eyes. Right in front of her, she sees the skeleton standing. The skeleton is heavily damaged, its one hand and some ribs missing. Even half of its skull has burnt to ash. The skeleton then falls to the ground, its parts scatter and unattach. Bewildered seeing this, Sumire extends her arm, calling out for the skeleton. She then remembers Yoosung and looks around to see where he is when suddenly an alert issues about a high-ranking monster. The danger warning flashes as the arrival of the rank 4 crystal golem is announced. Scared to death, Sumire turns her head around to see the massive form of the crystal golem looking down at her. It's early in the morning, snowing outside, as an alarm rings. A girl, groaning in sleep, extends her arm and turns off the alarm. Rubbing her eyes, Sumire wakes up, yawning loudly. She then walks downstairs and wishes good morning to her dad and mom. Smiling, both parents wish Sumire good morning. The dad warns Sumire it will be cold and reminds her to dress warmly, while the mom asks her to help make breakfast. After a while, breakfast is served. After breakfast, Sumire and her siblings brush their teeth. As Sumire prepares to leave, her mom hands her the scarf. With the scarf around her neck, Sumire is ready to go as her mom tells her to take care. Sumire then opens the front door and announces she will go now. She trots along the snow-covered path, her breath appearing like clouds. While she is on her way, someone's hand reaches out to her from behind. 2 other girls appear behind Sumire, one of them giving her a bone-cracking hug. The taller girl in glasses slaps Harumi, telling her to leave Sumire alone. These 3 classmates walk to school together, discussing their test results. Harumi says she finished 6th and thanks Sumire for her help. The girl in glasses claims that they always rely on Sumire. Laughing and discussing, the girls make their way to the school. After a while, they are walking along the school's corridor as Harumi says they should go to a cake shop. Distracted, Sumire nearly collides with a guy named Ishin. Ishin stares down at Sumire, who has a terrified look on her face. Ishin breaks into a smile and says he was surprised that Sumire did well in the practical exams. And he walks away, telling Sumire to keep up the good work. Harumi seems surprised to see Ishin actually praising someone, while Sumire blushes deeply. Later that day, a teacher announces that someone from F class finished 20th in the year's rankings. He also claims that this marks a first in their school history. With a smile, he congratulates Sumire, causing her to get startled. Harumi looks very pleased, while everyone else is open-mouthed in surprise. With everyone's attention on her, Sumire seems very nervous. At lunch, a girl praises Sumire as the pride of their class, while Sumire mutters she just got lucky. That girl tells Sumire not to be so humble and mentions that everyone is cheering for her. Harumi believes Sumire might be accepted into the Choten Academy next year. With this success and praise, Sumire felt herself growing greedier than she ought to be. One day, the students are gathered at a place, and the teacher standing in front of them is lecturing them. He tells them that knowing when to give up is admirable. He reminds them that their safety is the most important. He explains that each of the students is a future hunter and will be protecting both Japan and the world. Lastly, He begins to explain what they can do if their mana ever goes berserk. As he sees the determined looks on the students' faces, he becomes silent. He then gives a smile and claims he likes the look on their faces. After the talk is done, he allows the students to officially enter the 12th area's dungeon. The students then begin walking towards the entrance. Sumire looks nervous. At that moment, someone from behind puts their hands on her shoulder, prompting Sumire to turn around. Sumire sees that it's her two friends, both smiling at her. Seeing them, Sumire also cracks a small smile. The students begin walking through the portal into the dungeon. Shortly after entering the cave, the students manage to subjugate the first floor. With 10 minutes to prepare for the next area, they all sit down to take a break. A student, sucking on some juice, is not confident they can clear the whole dungeon. Another guy in glasses thinks they should at least try, pointing out they have a necromancer with them. He is referring to Sumire, who has a skeleton summoned. Sumire, meanwhile, is concerned as she realizes her mana is nearly finished. At that moment, a girl offers Sumire a mana potion. That girl also thanks Sumire, claiming that everyone is relying on Sumire. And she tells Sumire to keep up her good work. Saying this, the girl gives Sumire a smile and turns around. Sumire then realizes that everyone is expecting a lot from her and relying on her. This feeling makes her even more nervous as she fears failing. Sumire asks herself why she became a hunter. She thinks it was dumb of her to decide this. But if she had to give a reason, she would say she liked being a hunter. She enjoyed doing her best, being praised by everyone around her. And with all of them relying on her, she liked it all. And it was her overconfidence that got her friends into trouble long ago. At present in the cave, Sumire is looking down, tears in her eyes. Slowly, she lifts her head up. And in front of her, she sees the boss, the crystal golem, looking down at her. The crystal golem gazes at Sumire and launches an attack at her. Despite seeing the attack coming at her, Sumire gives up and just sits still. At that moment, Yusung leaps in front of Sumire and deflects the golem's attack. Turning his head, he asks Sumire if she is okay. Sumire seems to have lost all her confidence, believing she is not fit to be a hunter. She claims that no matter how hard she tries, she can't step up when others need her. Yusung gives a concerned look, seeing Sumire so hopeless. Sumire calls out to Yusung and apologizes. Now in tears, she thinks she has to give up. Sumire mentions to Yusung that he once asked her why she came to Jaeon. Sumire claims she thought she did that to change herself. But now she says it might have been because she just wanted to escape. She believed it would be more comfortable than facing her mistakes. In this new place, Sumire did have fun. She did her best and made new friends along the way. Sumire began to believe all this happiness is more than she deserves. And now eventually, she has realized that no matter where she runs off to, things will always be the same. Clutching hard on her dress, Sumire declares herself a coward. She points out that Yusung must have overcome much more difficult things than her and thinks she is causing trouble for him. With this, Sumire calls herself pathetic, but Yusung denies that claim of hers. Sumire's eyes widen in admiration, but she quickly says Yusung is trying to comfort her. Yusung points out he isn't trying to comfort Sumire, but instead he can't accept what she is saying. Yusung reminds Sumire she always did her best with the hope to change herself for the better. Yusung also mentions that Sumire didn't give up until the very end, so she can never ever be lame. Yusung then walks towards Sumire, while saying he didn't get strong because he wanted to laugh at people. He reveals that he was able to make it this far for a simple reason. Yusung says that reason is his master, who always believed in him. He then tells Sumire she can rest for a bit if she wants to give up, as she has already done her best. He also assures Sumire it's not her fault. Saying so, he extends his hand to Sumire, telling her if she wants to change, he will believe in her. Sumire is speechless at first, and then her eyes begin to tear up. She slowly reaches out to grab Yusung's hand, but the voices in her head make her hesitate. The past echoes of her friends, back in her previous school, all come back flooding into her consciousness, but somehow they aren't that clear. These echoes begin reverberating around her brain, nearly driving her insane. But suddenly, a calmer voice calls out to her as someone gently grabs her hands. Sumire looks up and sees that it's her mom, smiling warmly at her. Sumire calls out to her mom and tells her that she still wants to be a hunter. Sumire then closes her eyes and gets thrown back to reality. Sumire has finally grabbed onto Yusung's hand, and Yusung looks pleased. As the crystal golem launches a powerful attack at Yusung, he says he is glad Sumire is his partner. The stream has been on for 12 hours, and there are 59,000 viewers currently. Amy, who is streaming the exam on Jewel Island, is fast asleep. Suddenly, a loud warning causes her to wake up screaming. In a sleepy voice, she asks what happened. The notification says the raid of the island's mid-boss has started, making Amy fully awake with excitement. She grabs a drink and points out that the students are moving faster than she thought. She wonders who might have challenged the boss. Her chat believes it must be a group, as a single person can never solo the boss. With an excited look, Amy decides to see who has dared to challenge the boss. As she moves the camera around, Yoo-sung and Sumire are visible on the screen. Seeing this, Amy is shocked. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Yoo-sung is standing firm, with a serious look on his face. Sumire, standing behind him, notices that the mana is starting to gather around him. Yoo-sung explains that the black dragon's hide he wears is greedy, consuming both his mana and the surrounding mana. He then clenches his fist, converting the gathered mana into strength, which he directs at his fist. With heightened focus, Yoo-sung uses the battle god style technique and delivers Black Dragon's boulder-crushing palm straight at the golem. Doing so, a massive energy blast unleashes from Yoo-sung's punch. The blast travels straight at the golem and crashes into it with a deafening bang. However, the blast does no damage to the golem, and Sumire notices it is trying to absorb the impact. Yoo-sung points out that there's a limit to everything, and if anyone is too greedy, their plate will overflow. Just like this, the more energy the golem absorbs, it will be too much for it to handle, and it will be the end of it. Yoo-sung says if he were alone, it would be hard, but notes that there's Sumire along with him as well. He asks Sumire if she is ready. Sumire remains silent for a moment. Then she is able to feel Yoo-sung's mana and his heart. She finally realizes she always did her best, and bad things happening weren't her fault. She claims that she doesn't want to give up. She makes full use of her mana and the skeleton rises again, imitating Yoo-sung's black dragon's body armor. The crystal golem launches a counterattack. Yoo-sung and the skeleton sprint forward, dodging the golem's attacks. Sumire continues directing her mana at the skeleton. The skeleton shoots a massive energy blast similar to what Yoo-sung did earlier. The crystal golem responds by summoning its own energy blast. Seeing this, Sumire gives an annoyed look. As the energy shot by the skeleton closes in on the golem, it dodges, causing the attack to sail past its head. Yoo-sung has his fist raised, prepared to shoot the energy blast once again. The golem stares down at Yoo-sung, giving a loud hooting sound. Suddenly, the cave begins to shake. Yoo-sung, Sumire, and the skeleton brace themselves. From every side, sharp pointy rocks come flying at the three of them. As the stalactites close in on them, Yoo-sung and the skeleton prepare to respond. They both direct their mana into summoning the heavenly rotation of the black dragon. It's a massive energy tornado that pulls all the stalactites towards its center. Meanwhile, the teachers witnessing this point out that Yoo-sung's outfit is an artifact once used by the Fist King. Talking about artifacts, they are usually categorized into 4 types: normal, rare, unique, and legendary. However, there are still some artifacts that are more valuable than legendaries. But they are singular items, unique and unable to be found elsewhere in the dimension, classified as epic artifacts. There are also artifacts made with ancient technologies that are impossible to decipher. Lastly, there are artifacts created from the materials of another dimension, which are named arcane. The artifact Yoo-sung is wearing is an arcane ranked one, the black dragon's hide. It consumes so much mana that nobody was able to use it. It was a monstrous object. But seeing Yoo-sung use it easily, Xiao is bewildered. Yoo-sung is truly the Fist King's disciple, with such similar strength. Yoo-sung has his eyes closed. Sumire is continuously supplying mana to her skeleton. The skeleton pulls back a punch and charges forward. It takes a great jump and punches the golem right at its core. The punch causes a small dent in that core. Yoo-sung opens his eyes, the dark energy dancing in his eyes. The golem stares down at Yoo-sung and raises its arm. With a loud growl, the golem brings its arm down with great speed to crush Yoo-sung and the others. Below on the ground, the three of them look up as the attack closes in on them. Yoo-sung raises his hand and produces a miniature black hole above his palm. The golem's arm is inches away from crushing Yoo-sung. Yoo-sung swiftly extends his arm and pushes the tiny black hole into the golem's arm. The golem is pushed backward with great force, its arm destroyed instantly. The golem's core begins to shrink down. It's revealed that a massive hole has formed in the golem's middle part. Seeing this, Amy and Sumire are both open-mouthed in shock. The other spectators are all bewildered as well. Also, the 2 teachers are speechless. Finally, the system notifies everyone that the boss, the giant crystal golem, has been subjugated. With the crystal golem defeated, its core has shrunk to a small size, which Yoo-sung now holds. Sumire is in awe, looking at the core. At that moment, the system appears, congratulating Yoo-sung and Sumire for obtaining the golem's core and awards them 900 points. Sumire shrieks in shock, seeing so many points, as Yusung believes they can now join the sevens. Right then, someone's voice echoes through the cave, causing Sumire to turn around, startled. Suyun and two other guys walk in, saying they won't let Yusung and Sumire leave. Suyun expresses surprise, seeing Yusung really succeeded against the crystal golem. The other two guys mention their plans have changed and they will now hunt Yusung and Sumire. Taken aback, Sumire reminds them they promised differently. Suyun says he allowed Yusung and Sumire to hunt but never mentioned letting them leave. Saying so, he uses his trait and summons a massive bird-like creature made from water, towering behind him. Suyun then raises his hands and bellows at Yusung to hand over his pockets. The skeleton stands before Sumire to defend her as Suyun sends jets of water at them. The skeleton tries to punch the water, but it's futile, as Suyun says it's useless. Suyun then shoots more water at the skeleton, which enters inside its skeletal body. Overloaded with water, the skeleton's body shatters into pieces. Sumire is shocked, seeing the skeleton die in a single attack. The two other guys advance toward Sumire, warning her to give up and hand over their pockets. Sumire realizes she has no more mana left to use any skills. Looking worried, she turns to Yusung for hope. Yusung, smiling, turns to Sumire and suggests they head back now, as they have enough points. Suyun asks Yusung if he is planning to escape. He reveals that he has set many traps around the cave. Sumire looks around and sees their path has been obscured. Yusung assures Sumire that it's okay as he grabs her hand. Doing so, he says the path they will take is the sky. Angrily, Suyun shouts it's nonsense and sends more jets of water, planning to submerge Yusung and Sumire in the cave. But Yusung easily dodges the attack, seeing which Suyun is bewildered. Yusung, now carrying Sumire, asks if she is ready. He tells Sumire to hold tight, then leaps off the ground and shoots through an opening in the cave ceiling. Suyun shouts out in anger as he knows he will now lose his place among the sevens if Yusung gets away. Meanwhile, the other two guys are also taken aback, seeing Yusung just escape. Suyun punches one of them in anger, telling him to stop yapping and shut up. Suyun screws his face in rage, thinking about Yusung. Sumire opens her eyes slowly and sees a clear sky ahead. She exclaims in wonder and begins looking around. Suddenly, she gives a shriek of fright as she realizes Yusung is flying high above the ground. Still speechless, she watches as Yusung steps on the air as if it were solid, transparent ground. Yusung tells Sumire to be careful as he sets her down on her feet. Sumire is still in awe as Yusung suggests they move forward. So, the two of them begin walking in the air, leaving their footprints etched behind. Sumire is silent in shock as Yusung tells her there's a chance they might fall, causing her to be scared. Yusung wonders if he jumped too high, while Sumire claims the island looks small. Yusung notes that once they descend, it will be all over. Puzzled at first, Sumire then realizes Yusung is talking about the test. As they continue ahead, Yusung tells Sumire she did a good job. Sumire knows that once the test ends, she and Yusung will be apart. Lost in this thought, Sumire suddenly loses her footing and loses balance. Frightened to death, she gives a scream and begins to fall. Tears in her eyes, she bellows out asking for help. She closes her eyes in fear, then hears Yusung calling out to her and opens them. She sees Yusung is close to her, his hands extended towards her. Yusung then manages to hold her hands, saying he's got her. And so, the two of them fall together, their hands joined. Yusung asks Sumire if she's having fun, while Sumire looks like she might pass out. But seeing the calm look on Yusung's face, Sumire blushes and says it was fun. In fact, she had so much fun with Yusung that she wishes it would never end. Yusung asks her if she doesn't like endings. Sumire asks him back if he likes them. Yusung nods his head and points out that the future is uncertain. He explains that in life, one might be satisfied, disappointed, happy, or sad. As the two of them land down, Yusung says he still likes endings. And he puts a hand on Sumire's head and says endings make you appreciate each day. Yusung holds Sumire's head with both hands and claims that endings allow you to start all over again. At that moment, the system informs that the test has ended. With this, the ranking will now be announced. In first place is Yusung, in second is Sumire, and in third is Adela. Amy, the streamer, is bewildered that a transfer student beat Adela. The principal is dumbfounded, seeing Yusung has claimed first rank. Rinia and Saiwoo are both in shock, realizing that Yusung and Sumire are now members of the Seven. Meanwhile, Yusung's sister switches off the broadcast and grinning, says being in first place is not bad since Yusung is a failure. With the test ended, the students of Jaeon Academy are gathered in a hall where the principal is speaking on the stage. He says it's a proud day for everyone as Jaein Academy received outstanding results in the evaluation and made the academy's name shine. He says this glory was possible due to the efforts and talents of the students. He then mentions that among them, those who shone the most are the honorable sevens. The principal requests everyone to greet the sevens with applause. And he tells Samire and Yusung to step forward. The principal then explains that it's the first time in Jaein's history that students from F class have joined the sevens. Kim Yuna has a disappointed look on her face. But she gives a grin as she sees Suyun is even more disappointed. Later that day, Suyun is walking along the corridor, looking glum. At that moment, Yuna mocks Suyun, asking if he isn't a member of the sevens. Yuna then points out that Suyun has lost his position in the sevens now. She apologizes for her mistake but teases Suyun by sticking out her tongue. She then asks Suyun if he has nothing to say. Suyun says he just got unlucky. Yuna suppresses a laugh and says she didn't think Suyun would make excuses like he unlucky. Suyun asks Yuna if she wants to hear him admit that he lost due to his own shortcomings. And he notes that just because he lost his position in the sevens, it doesn't change anything. Then he walks away, declaring that the position in the sevens is still his. Yuna gives a grin and shouts at Suyun to try and reclaim his position. Suyun makes his way silently. The images of Yusung being praised by the principal and his friends' disappointed looks appear before him. He also recalls someone finding out he wasn't in the sevens and giving him 3 days to reclaim his position. Thinking about all this, Suyun closes his eyes in annoyance and submits a request. He is determined to reclaim his position. He tries to assure himself that Yusung is just wearing his master's halo and is still an F rank. The request he sent gets accepted by the student council president. The request is for a duel between him and Yusung. Within minutes, everyone in the academy is informed about the duel, which will take place in 30 minutes. Yusung will be defending his position in the sevens, while Suyun will challenge to take it back. Someone transfers an artifact to Suyun so he can be fully prepared. Looking confident, Suyun declares he won't give Yusung any chances. Somewhere in the academy, a guy in glasses says he is surprised to see a challenge take place right after the test. In the student council president's office, a girl believes Suyun couldn't accept an F-rank student taking his place in the sevens. The council president, Haeun, is deep in thought. She looks down at her brother's profile and asks those two there who they think will win. The guy confidently says Suyun will obviously win as he's clever. The girl also agrees with Suyun and points out that Suyun would never engage in a fight he would otherwise lose. Haeun, smirking, asks if that's really true. The arena for the battle for the position in the sevens is set, and Amy, looking excited, is telling this to her viewers. She points out that a challenge has never occurred so quickly after an exam and explains that A-class's Suyun, who started it, will put his position in the International Hunter Academy tournament on the line. The people in chat give their views on this. A girl mentions that Suyun's pride might have been hurt, while the guy says it's understandable since Suyun was ousted from the sevens by an F-rank student. Saiwoo, looking concerned, wonders if Yusung will be okay. Adela has also come to spectate the fight. She suddenly gets a flashback of her grandfather giving her a teddy bear. The flashback shifts, and in the next scene, the teddy bear has been destroyed savagely. Adela looks very upset. At that moment, someone walks in noting that even Adela also came to watch. A girl accompanied by 2 others says it's unexpected. Adela claims that's what she wanted to ask, and the girl mentions she needs to watch as Class A's representative. The announcer announces that the challenge will now start and instructs both the students to enter the arena. Yusung makes his way to the ring. A few hours ago, Saiwoo had told Yusung there are only 2 possible results in Jaein's challenges. The choices being, either you solidify a title as yours or it gets taken from you. Yusung closes his eyes to concentrate and focus on the match that's ahead. But a voice in his head, resembling his sister's, asks how it feels to be born a failure and if he feels desperate. The voice pushes Yusung, asking if he feels pain and urges him to answer. But Yusung remains strong and doesn't let the voice distract him. The next moment, he walks out into the arena, realizing that this is the kind of place where his sister reigns like a king. All the spotlights focus on Yusung as he makes his entry, and the commentator announces him. Yusung glances sideways and sees a dark figure watching from a high place. It's his sister. Yusung smirks, wanting to show her. And he climbs up the stairs, vowing to reach his sister soon. Once Yusung steps into the ring, Suyun greets him coldly. Grinning, Suyun says he thought Yusung would flee. Yusung claims he wants to prove himself. The commentator informs that both the competitors have entered and declares the challenge will start now. The countdown is about to be initiated. The principal is watching in anticipation. Suyun activates his trait and summons the waves of water behind him, telling Yusung he can't escape now. The countdown reaches 2. Yusung gets into position, ready to fight. The countdown reaches 1, and both Suyun and Yusung focus on each other. Samaya from the stands has her eyes closed, praying for Yusung's victory. The other students are all nervous and excited as well. Haeun repeats that either Yusung secures his position or it gets taken from him. Traits are rated based on various factors, and a hunter's destiny is governed by the rating assigned to their trait by the Hunters Association. In this world, there are S-rank hunters stronger than A-rank hunters and vice versa, but not a single one of the rank 7 hunters was not an S-rank. Among A-rank hunters, there wasn't a single person below rank 6. Suyun has activated his trait as he shoots jets of water forward. These attacks fly towards Yusung, who manages to counter and nullify them all. The commentator is bewildered as she shouts that Yusung is countering all of the high-speed attacks. While dodging and countering the attacks, Yusung continues advancing towards Suyun. Seeing such speed, the commentator asks if Yusung is really an F-rank. Yusung has already reduced the distance between himself and Suyun. Meanwhile, Suyun has a grin on his face as he continues attacking while Yusung continues countering. A girl spectating the fight notes that it's as expected of Yusung, the Fist King's disciple. But she also reveals that Suyun's trait can't be overcome by simply blocking it. Inside the ring, puddles have started forming. While Yusung is turned the other way, multiple attacks advance on him. Sensing the attacks, Yusung turns his head. Samaya is scared for Yusung. But Yusung reacts quickly, and he uses the battle god style technique, the heavenly rotation of the black dragon. Seeing this, the spectators are shocked and doubt how Yusung can be just an F-rank student. Suyun, grinning, asks if Yusung can still fight back. He then raises his hand and shoots massive jets of water. He wonders how long Yusung can keep up and fight. Samaya points out that it's getting bad for Yusung. Multiple pools of water form across the arena, leaving Yusung with no space to move, and eventually, his mana will deplete, leading to his loss. The multiple attacks strike Yusung and Suyun mutters, it's over. But it's not over as Yusung activates the heightened focus. He dodges the incoming attacks and uses the battle god style technique. Doing so, Yusung throws a powerful kick, sending mana-infused dark energy at Suyun. This attack is so powerful that it manages to shake the arena. It looks like Suyun is in danger. But Suyun raises his hand, revealing a ring on his finger, and mutters, Aragia. Suddenly, a massive water shield appears in front of Suyun, which deflects Yusung's attack. Yusung is puzzled by what happened, while some students in the audience notice that Suyun is wearing Ragia's ring. Ragia's ring is a unique ranked artifact. Amy bellows out in shock, seeing the ring. Instructor Xiao stands up and points out that someone should stop the fight. Suyun, below in the ring, gives a booming laugh. The woman beside Xiao pulls him back, saying there's nothing wrong with Suyun wearing the ring. Suyun tells Yusung to take a closer look, claiming he will show him that no matter how much he struggles, some walls cannot be climbed. Suyun then declares it's time for Yusung to go, calling him F-rank trash. Off the coast of Belize, there's a great blue tunnel into the depths of the earth, nicknamed the Pillar of Light. Rather than being a common horror story, the tale of the Pillar of Light and the story of Ragia were true. Suyun shoots a massive energy beam at Yusung. Yusung draws his arm back and thrusts it forward, launching the black dragon's boulder-crushing palm. The spectators marvel as Yusung's and Suyun's attacks collide mid-air. For a moment, the two energy blasts maintain connection. But after a while, Yusung lets go of the connection and Suyun's attack comes at him. Saiwu exclaims that Suyun's attack went through. Yusung swiftly leaps back as he realizes Suyun is taking help from Aragia, the monster his master eliminated. Ragia is a water dragon, a rank 5 monster. Yusung deflects the attacks and does a backflip as he notices the water is moving more intensely now. Suyun points out that Yusung seems to have slowed a bit. Yusung also realizes that if the fight drags on, he will be at a disadvantage. He then kneels down, places both hands on the ground, and charges forward, thinking he has to keep advancing. Suyun raises his hand, asking why Yusung isn't accepting reality. Suddenly, multiple spiraling torrents of water rise right above Yusung. As the torrents come crashing down at Yusung, he moves in a zigzag, avoiding them. Suyun acknowledges Yusung is fast and shouts Aragia, increasing mana in his attacks. But he yells in shock as Yusung manages to neutralize his attacks. Yusung then leaps up in the air, directs the mana to his fist, preparing to strike. Suyun also directs the Ragia at his front to defend. With a burst of massive dark energy, Yusung slams down onto Suyun. The spectators wonder if the match is over now. However, Suyun's grinning face is visible as it turns out Yusung's punch was blocked. Ragia seems to have intervened, defending Suyun as he declares checkmate. Regia then charges up an attack and shoots another massive energy blast at Yusung. Suyun asks Yusung if he still can't accept defeat. He also points out that the winner was decided before the match even started. Suyun continues yapping, but Yusung cuts him off, telling him things must be quite comfortable for him. Puzzled, Suyun asks what Yusung means. Yusung stands up and points out that Suyun must be relaxed since he was aware of the outcome. Yusung asks if that's true while Suyun seems taken aback. Yusung calls out Suyun, saying he must have been quite messed up even before the match. Suyun, puzzled by Yusung's words, asks him what he means. Suyun also reminds Yusung that he has Regia with him. But at that moment, Regia's head blows up, leaving Suyun bewildered. Yusung admits Suyun is right, noting that not everyone's efforts are rewarded. He claims that some feel their limits earlier and even give up. But Suyun ignores Yusung's senseless talks as he is shocked beyond anything seeing Regia killed. Suyun bellows at Yusung, but before he can finish, Yusung delivers a powerful punch to his gut. This attack destroys Suyun's barrier. Yusung mentions that in the end, we each make our own choices as Suyun falls to the ground. Looking up at where his sister is, Yusung says he won't let someone else determine his fate. Haeun smirks and notes that it was almost like Yusung is speaking to her. Meanwhile, Suyun gets K.O.D from the attack and loses the challenge. And the victory goes to Yusung. Amy mentions that Yusung will now receive the IHAT ticket Suyun put up as collateral. Amy explains to her viewers that IHAT is an international tournament hosted by the Hunter Association where the winner receives valuable rewards. And with this, she begins advertising the headset she is using. Sumire, Saiwoo, and Rinia rush toward Yusung, calling out his name. Seeing Yusung is wounded, Sumire suggests he get treated quickly. At that moment, someone calls out to the four of them. The student council members walk in, and the guy in front tells Yusung's group to move aside. Seeing them, the four are shocked. Haeun summons a card-like thing in her hand. Yusung stands firmly as Haeun congratulates him and gives him the AHAT participation ticket. Haeun smiles, mentioning Yusung has changed a lot. Yusung remains silent as Haeun looks around and notes that Yusung has made some new friends. She then gives a curious look and asks Yusung if he has really changed. In front of his sister, Yusung still feels like the little scared boy he once was. He begins sweating nervously as Sumire pulls on his shirt, snapping him back to reality. Yusung then takes the ticket from Haeun's hand and claims he has changed, regardless of what people say. Haeun smiles and says, "Okay." As she turns to leave, she declares she will be cheering for Yusung. Yusung watches as his sister walks away. The three then suddenly overwhelm him with congratulations and praises for his victory. Yuna, with a smirk on her face, asks Adela if Yusung will face her in the tournament. She also asks Adela if she can really win alone and offers to help if Adela wants. But Adela says that she doesn't need anyone else. She points out that Yuna would only get in her way. A while later, Yusung and his three friends walk along the corridor, while Sumire is still amazed from witnessing Yusung's fight. Blushing, Rinia asks Yusung if he has considered having a partner. Saiwoo explains that one can participate in the AHAT tournament with a group of up to 3 people. Saiwoo also mentions that some participate alone to receive a unique artifact and join the international competition. Saiwoo points out that winning the international tournament is the highest honor, and Haeun once achieved it. Hearing this, Yusung accepts that his sister is still far above him. Considering having a partner for the tournament, Yusung glances at Sumire. A while later, Yusung and the 3 part ways, bidding each other goodbye. On his way, someone greets Yusung, and he sees it's Amy, who asks if they can talk for a moment. Yusung asks Amy who she is, and Amy, shocked, points out that everyone in Jaein knows her. And she hands Yusung her card and introduces herself. She also claims that she is an honor student, and when she turns on her stream, she is the most popular streamer. She begins boasting about her viewers, and Yusung looks visibly irritated. Amy says that she wants to get more viewers and requests Yusung's permission to stream his participation in the tournament. She then gets close to Yusung and begins whispering something in his ear. Yusung and Sumire are looking up at something, both perplexed. They are outside the 7 Center. There, a caretaker welcomes them in. Sumire is astonished, seeing the center so high up. She inspects the bathtub and is stunned to see the hot water come out instantly. She is even more surprised to see the room so big and bewildered as she sees the washing and drying machines. Inside the refrigerator, she sees many items and also marvels at the TV on the wall. Very much pleased with everything, she goes inside the bathtub and relaxes. She mutters that everything there is surprising. She also claims that her old bathtub was just like this. After freshening up, She feels like seeing everyone as her exams are over now. She gets excited thinking about meeting her family and having a great time with them. Seeing everything going so great, she wonders if she is dreaming, blushing red. She recalls all the events and although they're real, feels like it's all a dream. She remembers Yusung had been happy to have her as his partner. But she knows that since the exams are over, it's all different now. Suddenly, Sumair shrieks out in shock as she sees her mother has video called her and is waving at her. Sumair's whole family appears on the screen, all looking overjoyed to see she has joined the Sevens. Sumair nervously says she just got lucky. Her mother asks Sumair if she isn't pushing herself too much. But Sumair denies that and instead says she is having a lot of fun. Blushing, Sumair mentions that she even wished it wouldn't end and admits it was extremely fun. Her mother gives a pleased look and asks if Sumair has something on her mind, causing Sumair to deny it hastily. The mother reveals that she tried to stop Sumair at the airport. And the reason she gives is she was scared. But now, the mother gives a grin and points out that she is proud of Sumair. Embarrassed, Sumair bids goodbye, tells her mom she loves her, ends the call, and falls back on her bed sighing. She raises one hand and stares at it. A sudden flashback of the time when she was blamed flashes past her eyes. She quickly sits up and shakes her head. Sumair, meanwhile, seems a bit pleased hearing her mom is proud of her. She then remembers receiving a rank F on a test and her mom assuring her it was all okay. One day, when she accidentally put salt instead of sugar in her cooking, her mom didn't scold her but instead giggled. Another time, resting on her mom's lap, Sumair asked if she could be a hunter, and her mom smiled reassuringly. Sumair grins thinking about all this. She switches off the light and lies back down to sleep, thinking failing is better than never trying. And with this, she closes her eyes. A while later, Yusung opens his dorm door and is surprised to see Sumair, smiling nervously up at him. Sumair looks up at Yusung as he opens his dorm's door. She is very nervous as she addresses Yusung. Though she is unable to say it aloud, she is there to tell Yusung she would like to join his party. But she is anxious as she tries to speak out. Yusung, smiling, urges her to continue. Sumair manages to utter a single word, a party. Yusung is puzzled by what she means by a party. At this point, Sumair is so nervous that she can't even utter a word. Finally, she mutters of fighting, and sits down in the corner, embarrassed. Yusung closes the door as Sumair realizes she acted like a dummy. The next day, Yusung is on his way to start his training. He enters the training arena, passing through the barrier. His sister Shin Haeun has been different from him since birth. Yusung was never able to understand her thoughts. But unlike him, Haeun was the honor of the Shurno family. She was indeed extraordinary, and so Yusung always felt afraid of her. And now Yusung is grown up, but he still gets the feeling of fear around her. At that moment, Suyun arrives in the training arena and offers Yusung a drink, telling him to be cheerful. Yusung, who is thirsty, thanks Suyun and grabs the drink. Seeing Yusung drink without thinking, Suyun asks why Yusung is not suspicious of the drink. Yusung notes that he trusts Suyun wouldn't do anything bad. Suyun then tells Yusung he shouldn't trust anyone. At that moment, a girl arrives, reminding Suyun she told him something yesterday. Yusung stares for a moment and then gives a smile. Yusung then says Suyun always says the opposite of what he feels, prompting Suyun to ask what he means. Yusung points out that Suyun didn't give up but claimed trying hard has no meaning. Yusung also notes that Suyun tells him not to trust others while he himself does. Puzzled, Suyun asks Yusung what he wants, given the expression on his face after winning. Yusung raises a fist and claims he wants to be the strongest. Hearing this, Suyun asks Yusung if he's sure, reminding him that there's still Haeun to surpass. Yusung affirms and says he wants to win no matter what. And he corrects himself that he has to win. Suyun remains silent for a moment and tells Yusung to do his best. Suyun also declares that he will cheer for Yusung but notes that Yusung must use his best card. Suyun mentions that the Ahat isn't an easy place. Yusung gives a smile and says, okay. And Yusung wonders what his strongest card might be. A while later, Sumair opens the door asking who it is and sees it's Yusung. She looks nervous as Yusung places a hand on her shoulder. Yusung speaks Sumair's name, causing her face to turn red with anxiety. Yusung asks Sumair for help, causing her to become open-mouthed in embarrassment. Yusung thanks Sumair, and she, still nervous, says it's nothing. Sumair then asks why Yusung is there.